Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Not Now, Mom. I'm gaming. My name's Kay, and in this episode, we'll be doing a gameplay review of Final Fantasy XVI. I've been looking forward to playing this game since it came out, but I had to wait for it to come to Steam. And of course, when games come to Steam, they'll sometimes be janky, and there have been complaints of the sort, but as long as nothing is game-breaking, I'm usually okay with it. This episode is a bit different than what I was initially hoping for with future podcast episodes, but I'm still working out the kinks. So I live streamed about an hour for the podcast, but I didn't write out a script beforehand, so I wasn't too thrilled with the outcome since it seemed a lot more like a Let's Play in that case. But still, audience interaction is nice, so I did a few proper reviewing portions. As such, I'll implement the live stream portion into the first part of this video and then a fresh gameplay review where I read from a script and it's not live streamed. It'll give you guys a feel for what I'm going for, even if this wasn't my best attempt. The description for Final Fantasy XVI states, an epic dark fantasy world where the fate of the land is decided by the mighty icons and the dominants who wield them. This is the tale of Clive Rossfield, a warrior granted the title First Shield Rosaria, and sworn to protect his younger brother Joshua, the dominant of the Phoenix. Before long, Clive will be caught up in a great tragedy and swear revenge on the dark icon Ifrit, a mysterious entity that brings calamity in its wake. And now we'll be going through portions of the live stream that I hadn't written a script for, so enjoy this part. So a battle between the Phoenix and Ifrit. I will say, like, in this scene, Ifrit looks more like Godzilla. I kind of liked past Final Fantasy gameplays of Ifrit. I don't know. In some of those, he looked more intimidating than this one. I mean, he's literally Godzilla with flames. But the Phoenix looks amazing, though. Also, so we knocked him into the earth. How far does the chasm go? Like, I assume the crevice had to have been already here. We just burst through the top layer. Also, this is one of those scenes where you can actually fight while in kind of a cutscene. So that's pretty cool. Shoot fireballs at Ifrit while he's kind of bouncing back and forth. Not all fireballs hit, which is kind of nice. Plus we can evade. I wouldn't think fire does much damage to Ifrit, considering he's fire-based as well. I do really like the interaction here, though. Like, you shoot fireballs at him, he'll jump from side to side, but he'll also, like, bull rush you. So you'll have to evade that, and then, as a Phoenix, you'll turn around, face him again. Hello, Nocturne. How are you? Dude, where is this? We literally dive-bombed Ifrit into the ground, into the huge chasm that went on for a while. I'm doing good. I played around an hour and a half of Final Fantasy 16. So I figured I'd try out the whole podcast situation here. See how it works. I plan on doing like normal Let's Plays and then taking the video, because this is a recorded video, and then just doing the podcast episode on the video. Nice transition there. They all have that symbol on their face. I don't know what that brand means, though.
Our kind do not question orders. We follow them. Try to keep that in mind.
Are they mercenaries, then? Or kind? It's a whole lot of barren mountain cliff sides. There's not much to see. Normally with Final Fantasy stuff, we get to see a beautiful landscape, you know? It's a little bit different. It's kind of desolate. Also, his name is Tiamat. Isn't that a god? Isn't that like a dragon god? 5-headed, 6-headed? Wait, they're named a Tiamat, a dragon god, and then we're Wyvern, which is another dragon type. Alright, here we get to actually move around. I get yelled at. But again, there's really not much to look at. I like how they have it so you can tilt the left stick gently to walk and fully to run, so you don't have to like click another button in order to run. It frees up another button. Even if it is not pressing down on the joystick. Republican Army front lines. Are the others liberals? I feel like this is less of a podcast and more of a Let's Play commentary. I'll have to edit it. I'll edit it. So I assume those are maybe ice bombs? They explode on impact? Oh my god, that music. I almost like missed it. It's got that Final Fantasy music to it. From the past. Lord Commander of the Royal Knights. Is he like the same as Beatrix in Final Fantasy IX? No, that was Steiner, wasn't it? Royal Attache. Is that a suitcase? Well, that's a suitcase, isn't it, Tashi? I don't even know how you say it. So he's a dominant, and they've spoken about the Shiva dominant. Kupka. What, was that an insult or like a command or something? Because it still says well-built man and that's his name. Kupka is a profanity version of Kupo. God. Well, I paused this at the right time, didn't I? One thing I really like here is the fact that if you like, run up to something that you need to climb or jump over or crawl under, you only have to press a button again. It just automatically does it. Thank you. Game developers are learning. They're learning that gamers are lazy and don't want to press buttons. Is that Hugo? That's Shiva. So people change into Eidolons in this game instead of summoning them? How does that work? Like, if a human being is Shiva and the human being dies, then there's no more Shiva. Shiva's always fascinated me. I love like all of her designs for the Final Fantasy games. She's definitely less provocative in this one. Because there's some Final Fantasy games where she's pretty provocative with her outfit. I mean, I would be a little bit scared. I wouldn't want to be on the battlefield at all. If you have a Titan Titan on your side, why bother with foot soldiers? Or at least have them in the back line to get anyone that gets past him. I'm calling in sick. He's super slow. Like, even when he pulls his arm back and pushes it forward, it's like he's moving in slow motion. He's just, super freaking strong. Okay, yeah. I stand by what I said. He's causing earthquakes over here and remodeling the land. I like how they showed that, because that shows you can kind of like teleport a little bit in battle. He said she's right on top of us, so I was like looking up and looking around. I don't see her. She's not really right on top of us. There's still a ways ahead. Also, this part was a little weird for me, because you can't go this way, but it kind of looks like the land is falling in order to create a path for you. Now, Kay, don't critique the narrative attempt to create urgency. But yeah, you can't get on this rock and go forward. You have to jump down. This would be horrible. Because you're like not even in control of what's falling down around you. And you can't avoid everything. It was just like gonna collapse on top of you. They did BS dirty there. I felt so bad when that rock smashed him. I don't know if that was actually his brother or it was like brother in arms. Because if it's his actual brother, then that's. Damn. That sucks. But I guess either way, if it's a brothers in arms, you don't really want them to go out like that. Okay, so that wasn't the full live stream portion I did, but I decided to cut it there. Now here are the same parts of the game without the live streaming part where I do read from a script to put my thoughts in order and better portray the game. Or so I believe. Either way, a lot of the things that I didn't have an explanation for before, I do now, as later in the game there's a dictionary for terms and I never reached that point in the first portion of the live streaming podcast test. So here's the fresh, more elaborate podcast review so far. Final Fantasy XVI opens up with these lines.
It was Moss the Chronicler who said that the land of Valisthea is blessed in the light of the Mother Crystals, and that it was this light which finally led our forebears out of the darkness. Yet, what they saw in the light gave rise to temptation. Temptation that ever lures us back into the crystal shadow. And thus did our journey begin.
So basically, we came out of the darkness and into the light, only for the light to make us fall back into darkness due to temptation. Yeah, that sounds about right. Here's a little information on some of the names mentioned in the quote. Moss the Chronicler, far fabled scholar of Valisthean history and legend. Even to this day, much of the surviving knowledge of the distant antiquity of the twins issues from his quill. In his later years, his writings attracted fierce criticism from certain scholarly circles, which resulted in him removing himself from public life. Valisthea, a realm comprising the twin continents of Storm and Ash, over which the Mother Crystals stand timeless vigil. At the foot of each, great cities have risen up over the eons, and around them, powerful nations. Though the land has been blessed with the light of magic since time immemorial, in recent years, a creeping blackness has begun to gnaw at its borders, the Blight. The Mother Crystals, enormous glassy mountains, 5 of which tower over the lands of Valisthea. They are the source of all the crystals that the people of the twins rely on in their everyday lives. Not only that, but the lands surrounding them are rich with aether, making the magics the crystals cast even more potent. For these reasons, great nations have sprung up around each mother crystal, and have long warred with each other for possession of their blessings. And now we're in a face-off between the Phoenix and Ifrit, 2 Eidolons. I have to say, the Phoenix is amazing looking because it's not just a firebird, even though it does look like there's liquid heat flowing through its feathers, but because its plumes, the tail feathers, had different colors to them, sort of like a peacock. It's not just an orange and red bird, basically. It has coloration to it. Much like a flame doesn't have to be orange, there's also yellow and blue. Though I don't think fire's cyan unless chemicals are involved. But that's part of the Phoenix's colorations too. I can't say the same for Ifrit. I apologize, but I'm going to mispronounce that name every single time I say it. I mean, he still looks basically the same as all the other Final Fantasy models for Ifrit, but this time he seems a bit more Godzilla-like and less formidable. Not that Godzilla wasn't formidable, but I think even that kaiju was bigger than Ifrit's size. They end up pummeling through the ground and going down a long, and I do mean a long, chasm or tunnel. And I'm not really sure why it's here, and if the Phoenix knew the chasm would be here, and it wouldn't be just solid ground it's wrecking into. Something obviously tunneled it out, but the reasons are unknown to me at this point. Instead of just watching a cinematic, we do get to partake in the battle between the 2 Eidolons, which is nice, and we control the Phoenix in this case. There are only 2 things we can do in this fight, and that's attack by firing off fireballs and evading. It's really the only 2 abilities that make sense. There's not a lot of room for movement and fancy wing play here. Even though there's no aiming you had to do, Ifrit does jump back and forth between the walls, and sometimes the fireballs won't hit because the direct trajectory is a bit off when he does ping pong around. Aside from that, you can just spam fireball. The time when you want to evade is when Ifrit lights up with fire and pushes off the wall towards you. You spin around to face him and continue the same song and dance. It doesn't last too long, and it does give you a look into some more interesting fight mechanics to come in this game. The fiery scene transitions to a campfire being reflected in a man's eye, who we'll be playing as. The current date is Year of the Realm 873, and we're located in the Nisa Defile of the Dalmatian Republic. Some background information. The Nisa Defile, a deep, arid valley located in the eastern part of the Dalmatian Republic. During the Battle of the Twin Realms in 865, it was the site of repeated skirmishes as the Iron Kingdom attempted to make insertions into Dalmatian territory. The Dalmatian Republic, a nation formed from a federation of 5 smaller states. It is located in the southern half of the continent of Storm and has its capital at Rondela. It is also home to the mother crystal known as Drake's Fang. There is no official state religion, and citizens are free to worship as they please. Dalmatia's key political entity is the Parliament, which is formed of ministers representing each of the states, with the Prime Minister at its head. A man named Tiamat reminds us of our orders, which is to target Shiva's dominant, and only the dominant. He doesn't say what we're doing with the target, so it could be either eliminate them or take them hostage. However, due to him saying this,
Our kind do not question orders, we follow them.
I suspect that makes us mercenaries, and most people hire mercenaries to get rid of people, not for a snatch and grab. And that's confirmed when we look into who Tiamat is. Tiamat, a bearer in service of the Holy Empire Sambrek. Tiamat is the leader of the elite assassin squadron to which Wyvern is assigned, the Bastards. Their latest mission, to take the head of the dominant of Shiva. To this end, they infiltrate the Nisa Defile, where the forces of the Republic of Dalmatia and the Iron Kingdom are aligned against each other. Though none know his true name, rumor has it that the man known as Tiamat was born a scion of a noble Sinbriqua family, and abandoned to his fate after his powers awakened. As far as what dominants are, dominant, those within whom sleeps the power of an icon. Though they look and think no differently to any man or woman, they can not only cast elemental magics without a crystal, but also transform themselves into beasts of world-shattering strength at any moment, a quality for which they are honored, worshipped, and feared the realm over. Before we head out, Biased walks over to the fire and puts it out with water magic, and seemingly without a crystal, meaning at this point with no further knowledge, he's either a dominant and can do this, or he's not a dominant and can wield magic anyway through other means. Before we take control of our character, we look out over the environment, and it's definitely not the prettiest landscape that a Final Fantasy game has ever given us. It's a lot of rocks and mountains that look more like rubble strewn across the dusty land on a somewhat cloudy day. But hey, they kind of still made it screenshot worthy if you ask me. Tiamat recaptures our attention by saying,
Focus, Wyvern. You are key to this mission's success.
a bit ominous without knowing actually who we are right now, but also adds a bit of intrigue to see where this is going to go. I tried to stand where I was and look around at the environment and got scolded by Tiamat, so at this point we just move forward with regular controls. Fun fact, I first learned of Tiamat being a 5-headed dragon goddess from Dungeons & Dragons, since I devoured a ton of the Dragonlance book series as well as the Forgotten Realms book series. Having fallen out of the fantasy book genre, I saw a Tiamat replica again by watching Yu-Gi-Oh! And here we have a man named Tiamat, and if he can turn into a 5-headed dragon, I'm about to salute and say, "Sir, yes, sir," to everything he says from now on while trying not to piss him off. A little further up, and we learn we can run by tilting the left stick fully and walk by tilting it gently. I prefer this style of running and walking because a lot of times games will have you hold a button down to run, or press a button in order to initiate a run, and seeing as this generation of gamers are lazy, the less buttons to press, the better. Eventually we see a clash of armies, stated as the Republican Army front lines. You've got your typical iron foot soldiers that are riding into battle on chocobos, as well as people who are manning catapults that seem to be tossing frozen water bombs that explode on impact. A nice touch. I can kind of see who's going to win this battle if the opposing army isn't as equipped. In the distance, we see the Zernitra stronghold of the Nisa Defile. Fort Zernitra, a stronghold situated at the western end of the Nisa Defile in the Dalmatian Republic. In the year 873, it served as a site of a meeting convened by the Dalmatians with their Waluder allies in an attempt to enlist their aid in driving back the Ironblood, who had been a thorn in their side since the Battle of the Twin Realms 8 years ago. Within, guards seem to be clearing the regular folk out of the building while a meeting is being held within. I'm not one to look too into politics because they aren't my strong suit, but it seems that the King of Walud had at one point maybe decided on helping the Dalmatians and is now deciding against it with as little words as possible, i.e. a shake of his head to his Lord Commander of the Royal Knights. This has caused a bit of an outburst of disappointment from the Dalmatian chief strategist, while the Dalmatian prime minister seems to be trying to calm him down. When a servant pours water into a cup from a crystal, we pan into a woman who pulls a pipe out and lights the end with her own magic. I can't tell if she did this to try and show off the fact that she's a dominant and finds the usage of crystals inferior, or if it was just a way to introduce her into the scene. She's titled as the Royal Attaché. She seems to be against the idea of using their troops to help out the Dalmecs, because once upon a time they won the Battle of the Twin Realms. And the fact that they have a dominant on their side they haven't yet utilized, who's standing against the wall. She figures once they send him out, the troops would be pointless and in the way. However, it's pointed out that the Ironblood now have their own dominant, which I assume would be Shiva. I'm a little confused on the whole now have their own part of that statement. Had they not been keeping tabs of the Ironbloods and the dominant and didn't know that the person existed up until now? Or did the dominant somehow come into play not so long ago? I thought a dominant was born into that role and grew up with powers. Did the Ironbloods keep their dominant a secret until now? The Dalmec's dominant, who's known as the well-built man, decides it's time to step it up and take it to the battlefield, since her knights aren't going to do as good a job as him. It also clues you in that not many people in the room respect the chief strategist. For one, he made an outburst that the Prime Minister chided him for, and the Lord Commander took a threatening step forward. Secondly, after the woman lit her pipe, she blew smoke in his direction while maintaining eye contact. Third, the dominant took a deep pull from a cigar, extinguished it in the strategist's cup, and blew smoke directly in his face. Yeah, nobody likes the chief strategist for some reason. We find out the name of both dominants in the next scene when Benedicta jumps into Hugo's arms and he pins her against the wall. Seems someone has a thing for well-built men. She praises him as the lion to the hair, and he states this.
I'm not afraid of a little frost, Benedicta, but I will need someone to warm me when I come home.
Yeah. It's interesting that on the tail end of their cozy little scene, Benedicta seems to be looking a bit on the sly side, making me think Hugo is a pawn in her plan somehow. Maybe that's me projecting my interesting self when I see a devious-looking woman in a video game, but she truly has the look of a fox in a henhouse. Back to us playing as Wyvern. The front lines of the battle are gone, so we're making a move within the chaos. As we progress forward, there's a wall to climb, and what I really like with Final Fantasy XVI is that you don't have to press a button to climb a wall or duck under something or wedge yourself through a small crevice. The game does it for you. Again, props to the devs. I say this because Horizon Zero Dawn was killing me with all of its jumping and grappling onto things and climbing stuff. I can only take so much of manhandling a landscape. Before we can get too far, a giant hand comes crashing down in front of us and we get our first look at Titan, who happens to be Hugo because who else would be a well-built man and a well-built Eidolon? Welcome to a cross between Final Fantasy and Attack on Titan, because that's literally what this is right now. And since one Eidolon is on the field, the second one comes into play as well, Shiva. Here's a small bit of info on the two Eidolons. Shiva, the Warden of Ice, whose appearance on the battlefield makes her enemies' blood run cold. The Iron Bloods sent Shiva against Republican forces in the Nisa Defile, where she dueled against Titan, the icon of Earth. Titan, the Warden of Earth, of whom Hugo Kupka is the current dominant. He takes the form of a stone-skinned giant whose granite fists shake the earth with every mighty pummel. Titan's dominant awakens among the peoples of the Dalmatian deserts, the recipient of his strength being granted great power and status by the Republic in return for a commitment to protect the nation in times of war. I've always loved Shiva as a character in the Final Fantasy series, not only because of her provocative outfits, although they are all quite nice looking and showcase the body of an ice queen, but the way she comes into play, her opening cinematics, and even the power over ice she holds. Her outfit in Final Fantasy XVI doesn't showcase her body like some of the other games, but she still looks good in her attire. I'm not sure an outfit change would make Titan think twice about smashing her into bits anyway. Speaking of Titan, I don't really have anything to say on him. I don't really recall him in the other Final Fantasy games I played, though if he was seen in later parts of the games, that's probably why, since I haven't finished them. I know, first attempt at actually finishing a Final Fantasy game here, and it's the 16th one. Go me. As for the battle itself, I really don't know why they didn't just let Titan do his thing and waste resources on men on the field, since he's basically going to step on people and end up killing them in the process. I mean, he's pretty slow when he walks, so it's possible to maybe get out of the way of his feet, but even so, leave the men on the back lines for those that bypass Titan. When both the Eidolons are in the frame, I feel bad for Shiva. She's so small compared to Titan, and I know that height doesn't diminish strength in terms of combat, especially where magic is concerned, but it's icicles versus a giant rock fist in this case, and if she's not evasive enough, I just feel like he'd do a lot more damage to her than she can to him. Just to prove my point on his strength, he stomps the ground and causes fissures in the earth and basically rearranges the landscape, causing a whole lot of death and a lot more panic from the soldiers. Something Hugo's personality type would probably enjoy. Of course, since he's rearranging the land, that means we're in danger of being either smashed by falling debris, crushed by either Eidolon attacks, or risk falling into a crevice, meaning we have to move. And in order to dodge a boulder, we sort of teleport ahead of it, which is a pretty cool clue that we'll have that ability in combat. As we run, the landscape really is changing around us, becoming dismantled and everything, so it's pretty cool that we constantly have to change course. My only gripe is there's a part where a boulder lodges itself between an empty section of land and looks like you could cross it as intended, but no. Even though it looks like it's planted there to walk over it, you have to drop down in order to continue further. It's just a little weird to have landed there like that if we can't walk on it. Thanks to a falling boulder, we're forced to jump off a ledge and slide down a slope, avoiding falling debris. Not manual, mind you, but through this cutscene. Unfortunately for Biased, a boulder smashes right on top of him, pulverizing his body. We narrowly avoid being crushed and as a result are barely conscious as Tiamat drags us away saying this.
I told you before, you do not get to die here.
As if he has a say in whether a piece of debris lands on me or not, like it did with Biased. Hello? What would have happened if I died here? Would he have been like, well shit, I told him not to. It's a little bit of a sad scenario because before we lose consciousness, we reach out to the bloody boulder atop Biased and say, brother. At first, I thought that might have been his actual brother, in which case that really sucks to have watched it happen like that, but having played further into the game already, I knew it wasn't. Which made me think we thought of Biased as a brother in arms, but again, I don't think that's the case either, due to us having a flashback incoming. I think it's more of him remembering having failed his actual brother by witnessing Biased die without having done anything to stop it from happening. It's not really meant to be a heart-tugging scene because we didn't really get a whole lot of screen time with Biased and didn't see the connection if there was one between him and us. I think it's just more about having a reason for the flashback that's about to happen. And that ends the first portion of our podcast review of Final Fantasy XVI. The next section will result in going through our flashback. I would like to do the next portion properly for a podcast live stream, but I'm still thinking on how to do it. Maybe I'll record my review of the section of the game, having the commentary in there, and then live stream it as a whole while viewers can give their thoughts. This podcast is on an entirely different channel than where I do my recordings, so there's that. I don't know. Maybe a live chat throughout isn't the best of things to do, because it'll be harder to edit a transcript for the episodes. Maybe I'll use this layout for my Let's Plays and such instead of full screen like I've always done. We shall see. But in either case, this is the end of our first gameplay review of Final Fantasy XVI. I hope you enjoyed it, and I will see you on the next episode. As long as, you don't get in trouble for saying, "Not now, Mom. I'm gaming."